Hello and welcome to USA Global TV, and welcome to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio. We're so happy to have you here and starting our day with us here on the East Coast of the United States. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is Life's Amazing Journey. And joining me as always is the incredible, the talented, always traveling around, changing the world one person at a time, Mr. John Christian. Hello.
Hello, Dr. Jacalyn. Thank you for the introduction.
Well, it's lovely to see you again, and I know that you've been quite busy. You've been filming, you've been traveling, you've been moving. Tell us all about it, John.
Yeah, it's fun. That's kind of my life. You know, I'm constantly reinventing and making changes because I found that it's really the journey that counts, as the American Indians used to say. So I explore the journey. I like throwing myself into the unknown and trusting and testing my own intuitive abilities, because that's one of the things I coach for people, is developing intuitive intelligence. For me, that's a vital aspect of our own nature and our conscious intelligence that's actually more important than just the rational, logical idea of intelligence. So I'm constantly jumping into the frying pan to test that, so that I have new experiences to teach from and coach from.
And you certainly are an inspiration and a role model. So for anybody who is thinking, oh, I'm afraid to try this, or I'm afraid to step out of my comfort zone, you're actually living that every day.
Well, show business has actually been the greatest training ground for me to learn to do that. I didn't realize that when I started out, but you constantly have to face the unknown. You go into castings for film jobs, and there's people you've never met before, and they're all sitting there, and sometimes they're not sure what they want, and they say, okay, do this, and you have to jump into that unknown experience and explore and find somewhere in yourself some concept of what you feel they want.
And obviously you do it quite well.
Well, it seems it's worked very well for me over the years. I must say my life is extremely blessed, but that's down to trusting that intuition. But in order to do that, I've had to learn to get my personality mind or ego mind out of the way, through skills of meditation and self-trust and developing self-esteem and self-confidence. So that's all a big part of the package that I use in my training programs now, is to help people to understand, we're all going to come to those points in our life where the mind wants to come in and stop you going forward. But if you know how to manage that and cope with that, then you can actually turn the energy of the fears and the doubts around and focus into moving forward, and come through the other side and discover, oh my God, if only I'd have done that before. How many times I've said that to myself? If only I'd have jumped earlier to discover what was on that unknown other side.
Really good points. And I can relate to what you're saying. It's funny, I had to find some pictures for somebody's birthday, and I went on my phone and I was going back to 2015, 16, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I've had an amazing life. I can't believe all the fun things that I've been doing. My waistline isn't quite as trim as it used to be, but I have certainly had a lot of amazing times.
Yeah, honestly, life is such a blessing. And when you know how to be in the driving seat and guide the energy, because it's all about energy, when you know how to channel your own energy correctly, mentally, physically, emotionally, then things unfold as if by magic. You know, and when I look back
Opportunities
on my
present
life,
themselves. You wouldn't have known, right? You wouldn't
yeah,
have had a chance.
absolutely so. Yeah, it's this beautiful magic, like, in so many of the movies, it's there, the never-ending journey and movies like that, where if you trust that there is a greater intelligence at work, and the way I put it is, if I require of myself to take responsibility for my own conditioning and personality, that's the only thing that ever gets in the way. And I tune in properly and do what I've discovered is necessary to be in tune with my own spirit, if you put it that way, intuitive intelligence, then things unfold. The only time it goes wrong is when I get in the way.
I think you bring up a really good point that we have to listen to our intuition, and we need to have skills to be able to be as authentic as possible and
Yeah,
walk through those doors and eliminate the fear and that ego and that voice that keeps saying, don't do it, this could happen, that
yeah,
could happen.
yeah.
I appreciate
It's
that.
it's really fascinating. So that's what I try and help people to understand how that works. How did it come about? What can I do about it? When I hear those voices, I'd like to, but what if? And then, well, we're so busy putting energy into that kind of thinking, it means that we're head bound. So we disconnect with the feeling of intuition and, gut feeling, sixth sense, what's right. But that voice is always behind those voices, and that voice is always saying, no, don't think like that, don't speak like that, don't behave like that. But we're no longer skilled in tuning the mind in to listen to our own intelligence, and to follow it. And that's the challenge on the personality ego level, because the ego obviously only knows, what it's learned, and only wants to do what it's always done. So we get more of the same old, same old.
Well, you certainly have helped me with your coaching when I was in that dilemma about should I stay on that 75 hard program, and I wasn't listening to my intuition, but I listened to your coaching and I made a decision that really was very beneficial. So thank you.
Thank you too. I really appreciate that you said that and that you did it. That's the most important thing.
Yay. Well, John, you have brought another incredible friend of yours here. I just love meeting your friends. They're so accomplished, they're so open, and this person is coming back for a second time, an international superstar celebrity. So I'll let you do the introduction of your friend, Chris.
Thank you. Yes, Chris Vancleave. Chris is a very dear friend. We've known each other a long time, he and his family. So I have to say we have a great love for one another. And Chris is a multi-talented person. He has a list of accolades literally as long as my arm. He's a singer, a songwriter, an actor. He has lots of CDs. He's been in movies and theatre. He's been lead in many West End shows and shows in America, because he's from America. So like Jesus Christ Superstar, Man from La Mancha, Les Mis. He was leading Les Mis in London. Chess, Pirates of Penzance. So many things has Chris done, and he's actually going to join us today, I'm pleased to say, from Athens, where he's on tour with one of their top superstars. So Chris will tell us all about that. Let's go over to Chris. Chris Van
Welcome,
Cleave.
Chris Vancleave. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
Do we catch you in the middle of something? No.
No, I just was acting like I was caught off guard. It's so much fun.
Well, we are so thrilled to have you back again, and I know you have a super packed schedule, and we just appreciate you making the time for us. And I want our audience to know that Chris has many, many wonderful songs that we would have loved to have been able to play today, but due to the technology, we're not able to. So, Chris, you'll be able to share with us where people can go, I'm sure.
Absolutely. They can go online and type in my name. There's a few Chris Vancleaves elsewhere in the world. I'm the one that says, it'll say, if you type in Chris Vancleave, actor, singer, songwriter, a lot of information will come up, and my song links. I've got some film clips up there, and 3 of my albums are up online on all the streaming platforms: Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and all that. My son-in-law in England, Sheffield, England, Samuel James Taylor, has made that possible by putting up 1 album per month of the albums that I've recorded over the past 3 or 4 decades. And so that's been kind of an exciting rebirth for me to have that happen and make that more available to more people. And that would just be, again, typing my name in, Chris Vancleave, music, and you can find it on YouTube or Spotify or whatever your streaming platform preferences for music. And there's a few inaccuracies out there online. A lot of people look at the internet for the source of news and truth, and that's not always the case in terms of how true things can be. But I have had an amazing life, and continue to count my blessings and enjoy the learning and the journey, and I hope all of you are too.
Chris.
Thanks. Oh, go ahead, John.
No, I was just going to say, we've often had the pleasure of singing together, and it's always a delight. Chris is such an accomplished guitar player as well as singer and performer. But I was fortunate enough to work with Chris on an original rock gospel musical called The Davidson Effect, written by one of our mentors, Paul Solomon. So I wonder if you'd tell us a little bit about that, Chris, and how that came about for you, because he wrote all the songs and all the music for it.
Well, I just come off tour from my second tour, Jesus Christ Superstars, Jesus. That was 125 cities in 8 months throughout the United States and both sides of Canada. And my marriage was falling apart at the time. A marriage to a lady who played Mary Magdalene on my first tour, Jesus Christ Superstar, back in 1975. And I have 2 incredibly beautiful daughters that are now full grown with children of their own, and some of them full grown as well. And I ended up singing at her wedding. She got remarried before I did, and she asked me to sing at her wedding. So miracles can happen if we have enough willingness to grow and open our hearts and minds to something beyond what seems to be, the current given circumstances that we're stuck in. It's amazing what can happen. So John and I met. I kind of stumbled into this place called the Fellowship of the Inner Light. That's an interfaith church in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And I met the founder of that church, Paul Solomon, told him my story, and he just kind of listened with a pipe, just didn't say anything, just listened all the way through, and taught me, perhaps reminded me, that we tend to confuse what love is. He said, love is not a back scratching contest. I said, everybody has love within them. It's that spark we are born with. And the more we give, the more there is to share and experience. And so I wrote a song called Learning to Be the Love that is also, I think, out there online now. And I'd heard about a story that he told about Joe Davidson's story about what would happen if someone like Jesus were born today in New York City or any major city. How would the government and churches respond to that? Would he or she be recognized? Would history repeat itself? And I was intrigued by that. And so I wrote a song based on the story of a couple that are brought into the Waldorf Astoria, and the woman goes into labor. And it's a time where all the men of eligible age are required to register for the draft, and people are having numbers stamped on them so that they can buy and sell and things like that. This child is born, and 3 astrologers are escorted in by a taxi driver to the basement and saying he'd seen a light over the Waldorf Astoria. And that's where the story begins. And I wrote a song called Emmanuel based on Paul's telling me of that story. And that's where it all began to roll on from there, where we ended up writing, I think, 20 songs, something like that. Some of them were written in Hawaii. But after a year and a half, we had the script and music together. And its first performance was at the Wells Theater in Norfolk, Virginia, an old vaudeville theater that had been restored. And this was the largest production that had been produced there since vaudeville times. And that's where John Christian came into the picture. He was over for one of the summer fellowship family gatherings. And it just all came together with different people involved with the fellowship and outside the fellowship. And we ended up doing, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 performances there. after which we did the cast album, which is also available now, all these years later, on CD. And so that it's a retelling of the story of Christ, but it's not just that. It kind of turns the mirror around to be more about you and me, all of us, and what we've got within us and have had always, and the remembrance of that, and how we can make a difference in our lives, no matter where we are or what we're doing as a life work, career-wise. That spark of source or God or whatever you want to call creation, from whence it comes, because I hear tell that that source or God doesn't have an ego problem in terms of what it's been called, but it gets really excited when we remember. So that's been the story of that, very, very much condensed, and that's how I met John Christian, who also inadvertently, or perhaps very directly, introduced me to my wife, and that's a whole other story with a letter and everything. So, yeah. So we are brothers from different mothers.
And so I have a beautiful goddaughter as a result of it.
Yes, you do. Rebecca Joanne Chalice Vancleave, who is married now to Samuel James Taylor, who is also a musician and very involved in the music business, managerially and consulting-wise. And they live in Sheffield, and they've got a band together called Most Endangered Species. And its music is kind of a hybrid of Americana and British folk with a modern day production to it. Really beautiful things.
Very talented.
So they're doing that, and John is one of her three godfathers, I think. Ray Shell is another one, who was a West End star that played Judas on the British tour, just Christ Superstar with me. And the other one, can't remember, he might have just kind of faded into a hermitage someplace now, along with certain portions of what's left of my mind.
John, how did you know that Chris and his how did you know that Chris and his wife would be a good match?
Well, actually,
did you?
Chris was writing a song for me at the time, and so this was when we had letters. Remember those days in our lifetime?
Yes.
So I asked, Judith was going over to America to be with our group there, and I asked her, would you please deliver this letter to Chris Vancleave for me? And that was the kind of letter that's turned into a future story of union and friendship and love and the journey performance.
Our earlier days of learning how protocol in the music business was. It was actually, John had recorded a piece called The Great Invocation, of which there's probably, I heard, about 25 or 26 different renditions of it. It's a prayer by Alice Bailey. And when I heard it coming through in my mind, was when I had moved to Austin, Texas with my first wife, and we were going to break into the music business that was exploding then about 1976 in Austin. And I'd worked in a health food store that became the first Whole Foods store, if you've heard of Whole Foods.
Yes.
Went basically internationally, but that was the first one there in Austin, Texas. And a guy that was working there with me was missing 2.5 fingers, and he was our piano player and played amazingly. His name was Brad Boyd. And he said, Chris, why don't you come with me? I've got this job roofing barracks out at Fort Hood, Texas, and we'll make a lot more money than we're making here. So I'm, okay, I'd never done that before. So it ended up being a job roofing barracks in 104-degree temperature with these rakes that are like, very, very steep, hauling shingles up to the roof of these things. And it was, I don't know why I wasn't afraid, but I just did it, for a while. And he was the one that introduced me to the Great Invocation. He would pick up hitchhikers and pass out copies of the Desperado and the Great Invocation as writers. And one night under the stars, I looked up and I heard this music come through. That was the music to the Great Invocation. So years later, several years later, the fellowship where John and I met, I walked in there and I saw this big, huge plaque of planet Earth with the lyrics, words to the prayer of the Great Invocation. And they were wanting to do a rehearsal, and I said, well, I've got music to that right there. And so they learned it, and it was the first time I'd heard the harmonies that I heard actually being voiced all together. And I used to warm up to that piece a cappella when I was playing Jesus on the second tour of Jesus Christ Superstar in 1979. So John had learned that piece in Virginia Beach, and then went back and did his first cassette album. And I'd heard that came out. It's all going to come out, John. It's all going to come out. So I heard that from a friend that John had done this cassette album, and it sounded really good. I said, well, that's great. They said, yeah, and he did the Great Invocation. I said, well, I wonder which rendition he did. He said, well, it sounded a lot like yours. I said, that's wonderful. So I got a copy of the cassette, and on the credits there, it had credits for like Chris Christopherson for One Day at a Time and different people like that. And then I looked in the Great Invocation. I saw no writer's credits for either myself or Alice Bailey. And I go, well, that's strange. That's weird. So I wrote John a letter. I said, John, I was really happy to see that you got your album out, but I'm a little bit, bewildered why you gave credits to these other people that you didn't even know, and you didn't give a credit to Alice Bailey or me for writing that song. So that was the letter that he wrote as an apology to give to Judith to bring back to me when we first met in Virginia Beach on the stage. That's a great metaphor. On the stage, that was where they presented their services and different things at the fellowship in their life. And that's how John indirectly.
It was a letter of profound groveling and humility and embarrassment and apology.
Well, that's one way to look at it. But as you will often say, most things are a case of cosmic serendipity, if we really understand that. Look at it.
Yeah, because it brought us together.
Cosmic serendipity, how the dots all connect. We think, well, that was pretty accident. Was it really? Things all, like you said before we even came into this broadcast, things happen for a reason. And that's an example.
Exactly. That's an incredible story, Chris. And I'm wondering, at the time when you realized he left you off the cassette, by the way, do we all remember cassettes? Put them in a machine from the car, wherever.
I know it was after that. Let's see.
Were you thinking that you two would connect and become friends, or did you have anger?
No, we were already ready friends. That was
okay.
No, did I have anger? Yeah, mostly just kind of bewilderment. Not to say that John hasn't ever angered me before. I mean, when we get our buttons pushed, that's usually for us to look at our own stuff to see why we're getting angry about that. So that's a blessing in disguise too. But we are brothers from different mothers. John and I are very, very wealthy, and people that we love and love, from family to friends. I say that's all we take with us. When all is sung and done, and we leave this plane of things, all the other stuff falls behind like an old cloak. But the love that we've expressed and felt and received and shared is what we take with us and what we leave.
Chris has forgiven me.
Yes, but it wasn't for your workshop on forgiveness.
Yeah.
So I'm getting a call now from this man. It's probably in reverse. Kostas, who is the percussionist that I'm working with tomorrow night on Salamis Island, a Greek island. And I met him. He's actually Alexandros Sahalis, a percussionist friend that he works with him a lot. So, and Kostas lives on Salamis Island and has set up a gig for me tomorrow night there at a place called Stones, as in Rolling Stones. It's a venue that serves food, and it's also a music venue as well that I'm quite excited about. I haven't done one of these type of gigs in a long time, but he'll be playing percussion and drums and flute with me there, as well as another electric guitarist friend of his that I have not met yet. And we'll be doing that tomorrow night from like 10 to 1 or 2 in the morning, 10 p.m. So that'll be exciting. And I'm catching a ferry for that right after this interview. So that's who was calling me to check on me. But plug for him and for Alexandros Sahalis and the many, many people that I've met since I've been here in radio and TV, and his friends. People have been very, very supportive and gracious and kind, and really lovely people here. And this is my first trip to Greece, and I don't speak a word of it, even though I say it's all Greek to me. That's just where theaters come from, all the classical theaters, Euripides and Aristophanes and Sophocles and all those folks, and a lot of philosophy, including democratic principles. So it's quite a eye-opening and heart-opening experience. I felt a real connection with Greece here in Athens. And I was on a radio show a couple of times here that broadcast to Greek-speaking and listening folks in 90 different countries. So it's been a whole new frontier of connections opening up for me, for which I'm very, very grateful.
Have you had
Chris,
chance to go to any of the
congratulations.
sacred sites, Chris?
Say that again?
Have you had chance to go to any of the sacred sites, like the amphitheaters?
I've been near the Parthenon. I'm going to be doing a lot of that next week because of this past week has been a lot of, we had our concert, Alexandros Hahalis concert last Saturday on Salamis, what they call Salamina Island. And it's been a lot of that and a lot of just catching up on things while I'm here. So next week is going to be about that.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that Alexandros, accent on the second syllable. It's hard for American people. Alexandros. I want to go Alexandros, but no, it's Alexandros. So Hahalis is his last name, which I love. Hahalis, because my long-range goal in life is to die laughing, which I practice doing every day, and it's almost impossible to do because you get healthier when you laugh. And you find yourself swimming with the endorphins, which is another line I like to use. Anyway, so he has done an arrangement of Carry the Flame, a song of mine that I wrote in England in 1986, that Tim Wheater played on a little 4-track cassette recorder that was played again several decades later for the Vigil for Peace and Ecology in New York City in Central Park. First time was about 4 years ago with my good friend, electric violinist Cecil Hooker, and we were playing on stage, and Susanna Bastarrica, who was the founder of that, founded it back around 9/11, and that's been running every year until COVID, the pandemic hit, and so for the past 2 years it didn't happen. But we have released 2 versions of Carry the Flame, which was written for the first Earth Run. At a celebration in London. A torch was taken around to over 60 different countries around the world. Runners running for peace and reconnecting, building bridges between other communities and countries. And now that song has been reproduced in 2 versions, and that's online now too. It's called Carry the Flame, as Alexandros Hahalis arrangement, and an acoustic arrangement of that, which we just got up for the International Day of Peace, which was September 21st, which happens every year, folks. I was ignorant of that until about a year ago. And now, if you haven't heard of that, yeah, it's happening every year. It's sanctioned by the United Nations, and there are celebrations that take place all over the world honoring that remembrance of the day. So I think I
remember we all sang that together at the Churchill Memorial in front of the Albert Hall.
That's right. I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Yeah, I'd recorded the demo, but I was late. I missed the boat on getting it in on time. And timing. What's the secret of comedy? Timing! So I missed it. But, again, it comes out and has a whole new life and new structure and different versions of it, and many more people involved with it. Over 3 decades later, that have been sitting around collecting dust.
It's a great song.
So you never know what's around the corner or how things will unfold.
Yeah.
That's why don't give up. Don't give up. Just move on through. As my Jamaican friend would say, Chris, my brother, we dance with the given circumstances best we can, man. And that's true.
Well, a really good example of that, Chris and I have a mutual friend called Shirley Roden too, and I was just with Shirley the last couple of days. She wrote a musical some years back called Jeanne, about the life of
Joan of Arc.
Joan of Arc, yeah, thank you. And one of London's top impresarios called her up a couple of months back and said, right, hey, do you know what? I'd like to look at putting that show back on in the West End. So, hang in there. You never know what's coming round to you.
That was my first a British show that I did.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that was done at the Sadler's Wells Theater, which was known for being an opera ballet house. And I auditioned for that, and I played one of Jeanne's, or Joan of Arc's, voices, St.
Yeah.
Michael. And it was done in kind of punk rock, what do you call it, urban styling, both costuming wise and very kind of modern, mechanical, urban kind of sets, very different approach. The music was absolutely beautiful.
Superb.
At Shirley Road, and it got panned, unfortunately, because of, I don't know why, because critics love to work their vorpal pens and slice things up, I guess. But many people loved it, and my outfit, my hair was longer than it, and it was punked up, spiked up like wings on the side, sprayed silver, and I had silver shoulder pads and a silver codpiece. Those of you who are in theater from Shakespeare, that's that section down there, in the crotch region. And I had silver laced up sandals and initially stained glass wings. And I was sharing the dressing room with a gay friend of mine, and he looked at me and he said, "Honey, you come to my club and you'll make a lot of money like that." I said, yeah, I could probably walk into a record company right now and not sing a note and I'd be signed. So it was, and so because of this outfit, my wife, who we just only been married about maybe 6 months, had brought her elderly stepmother, who was probably about 87, 88. And just before the curtain opened, I had a run in my tights. So the wardrobe mistress, whose name was David, said, "Don't worry, honey, I'll take care of you." He comes back and he's got some pantyhose, see-through pantyhose that I had to put on because the curtain's going up in like 2 minutes. So the curtain goes up, and my wife Judith said that her stepmother was asking him, is he wearing anything? So they said they could actually see the hairs on my posterior on the balcony. I'm not the hairier of a guy, but I mean, that was
What a memory.
another one for the endorphin swimming department. Laughing.
I love that.
I was listening to the album as I drove, because I'd not heard the whole show. So Shirley gave it to me, and I was listening as I drove from Shirley's back home the other day. It's just some fantastic pieces. Your vocals are always amazing.
Well, I've had a lot of inside help on that, John. So.
Chris, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Which you've accomplished so much with, the writing, the playing, the performing, the traveling, all the people that you've met. It sounds like obviously an amazing, incredible journey. So when people come to you with new projects, what does it have to get your attention, considering everything you've already done?
Well, I have a tendency to say yes more than no, which has been a blessing and a curse at times. But I look for, I've been like a kid in a candy shop when it comes to the arts. I love the performing arts, the visual arts, and I've been able to work in all those areas, either collaboratively or on my own. But these days, because time is so precious, I want to align myself with expressions that have the potential to uplift people, even if they're telling a story that it has soul carving experiences, what I call them, when we go through tough times, that it doesn't just leave people there. It offers hope and light and the chance to grow as a more loving human being more humane, and not just to other humans, but to all life, all creation. The spirit, the source of creation, is in all there is. Not just in humans or animals or plants, but even in the rocks and the trees, and it's threaded through us all, just differently and uniquely expressed, and that's a miracle in itself. So what I want to align with in terms of my participation in the arts, either individually or collaboratively with other artists, co-creators, is that it is directed in that way, so that it's lifting people up, it's inspiring them, it's reminding them of who they truly are and are capable of being, and their own gifts they've been given to work with. And that we can all grow from that. to greater understandings. And I'm still in training about that. But I raised my hand and said, that's what I want to be instrumental for.
That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I can see how you two are aligned.
Well, can't help it. We were born this way. That's right. We are continually being groomed this way. Let's put it that
Indeed.
way.
So, and you two plan on connecting in person sometime soon?
That's the hope. You know, I haven't been to any European countries except for Holland, passed through Belgium, but I have all of those along the Mediterranean. I haven't been to Spain, I haven't been to France, I haven't been to Portugal, I haven't been to Italy. So I'm now that I'm 70 years old, really, really interested in seeing what there is left to see, if you know what I mean.
We just started a new show this week called Happy on the Go Seniors. So I am just shocked at how many people who are over 65 are just finding the next chapter of their life is even more exciting than where it is they've been before, because it used to be you get to be a certain age to retire, you go play golf or you go play cards, whatever it is, you sit in front of the TV like a zombie. But people are not doing that. They're out there changing the world and inspiring everyone.
Yeah.
Well, that's the possibility. And when you see the possibility and it's aimed for, that's what it's liable to be, and so much more. You know, still rocking and not just in the chair.
And still have our teeth. Yay. Chris, I know that you
mine yesterday. We were filming yesterday, and part of the scene was the latest mobility scooter thing that one of the actresses was riding, you know, and we stopped for a coffee and she was still sitting in the chair, and the next thing I knew, the coffee table was up in my face because she'd pressed go. And she'd driven straight into our coffee table.
That's what you get for having a magnetic personality, John.
I saw you. I didn't know it was you on the scooter, but I could hear you. I didn't realize you were with someone else.
Oh yeah, there was 4 of us in the actual.
You can't tell the product though. You can't tell the product online though. That can you? Don't bring the bread out of the oven before it's baked.
Yeah, we were shooting in Cambridge Botanical Gardens. That was the last area we shot in yesterday. So that was fun. And the owner of the company had the latest electric car, which only cost him £65,000. So I got to ride in that and experience, you know, like the latest electric motored car. So it's an interesting day. This is the beauty of our lives, isn't it, Chris? We never know what's coming. It's always full of variety. The fun is not knowing what's coming, and what we make of it when we're in it. You know?
Yep. Dancing with the choices of the given circumstances, how to react. Why did you do that? How to respond. I love you, Johnny. Anyway, no matter what you do. I've taken workshops in forgiveness. I even forgave myself. That was really hard.
Can you imagine being on stage with him and then in dressing room?
Well, I bet you have a lot of fun.
Yeah, we do.
Yes, indeed.
And Chris, I want to be respectful of your time, and so I'm going to spotlight you. And if you could share with our audience anything you want them to know about your performances, again, where they can find your work, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, if any of this levity-laced communications with my shaking laptop here, you're going to want to laugh, has made any sense to you at all, and you're interested in learning more about my songs or my life, my journey, I invite you to visit www.vancleavemusic.com, right down there at the bottom of the screen, or email me. And I would also like for you to see whatever you see in me that you particularly like or dislike as a mirror, because we all are in this together, connected. We're all of the same tree, different paths, different leaves, but it's the same tree. And when we remember this, that's how we can make a difference in the world. It's going to take individual change. We can't wait for everybody else. It's going to take individual change to make a positive difference in the world. That'll move us towards what we are capable of being as humane human beings, cooperating harmoniously along with all the rest of life. Plants, animals, land, sea, the sky, it's all intertwined, connected. Keep on shining. The world needs you. Lots of love always.
Thank you, Chris. It was an absolute pleasure to have you back, and we're just so excited for everything that's coming forward for you.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure being back always, and thank you for having me on the platform. And I know I don't have to ask you to keep on shining, you two, because that's your aim already. We're practicing. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice.
Chris, and on this note, when I was in Greece with Paul, we were visiting all the sacred sites. We went to the amphitheaters, and I got to sing the Great Invocation. So you have to go to the amphitheater and sing, man, because the vibe that you get singing there takes the top of your head off. Go do it.
I look forward to that. That's on my to-do list for this coming week.
Record it. I want to hear you doing it.
Alrighty. I've got my trusty memo recorder here.
Listen, have a great rest of tour there, and may wonderful things continue to unfold for you. And I certainly look forward to us meeting up in France or Spain, and then traveling down to Portugal together.
Well, let's speak about that come Sunday or Monday. For sure.
Yeah.
So we can zero in on manifesting that. I look forward.
You got it.
Love you, brother.
You too,
love
mate.
You, Dr. Jacalyn. Always.
Bye. Thanks, Chris.
Lovely sight for my eyes to see your beaming soul there. So keep on shining.
Thank you. Thank you. Have safe travels, and we'll welcome you back.
Enjoy the island.
Lots of love.
Bye. Oh, what a fabulous person, and what a great way for us to start out here in the United States with two of you with all of your positive energy and inspiration.
Well, it's the time. I mean, Chris and I have been around these things for a long time in terms of, understanding the human nature and the spiritual side of our nature, and the importance of being in tune with it. So whatever category you want to put that in, there is unquestionably, we've experienced a greater intelligence at work within us and around us. And if you trust that, and I think that's what people are being given the opportunity to do nowadays, especially now, probably, is to come back to that trust of that gut feeling, intuitive intelligence that's always there, always guiding us. But it's our responsibility to do what's necessary to tune in, trust, and listen, and then follow.
Good words to leave us with, John.
Thank you.
I'm going to spotlight you, and I'm going to find your banner and just share with our audience how you can support them, the wonderful work that you're doing. You shared a little bit today about your coaching and how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah. Well, you can get in touch with me at email john@lifebalanceportal, and my website is www.lifebalanceportal.com. I have an online training program that's called Skills for Life Balance, and the balance thing has become, to me, the most apparent and important thing we need to return to nowadays. So what does it mean to have balance between mind, body, and spirit? So energetically, we are moving our life force in such a manner that our immune system stays strong. We feel good about ourselves in our own skin. We are positive, energized, and we have enough energy to do amazing things that even our little personality mind can't imagine sometimes. So I'm constantly testing and trying myself in order to do that, and I'm finding out that there are things that I've achieved in my life that my little personality never would have dreamed it could have ever have done, as long as we are willing to tune in and trust that there is that greater intelligence of life itself in us and around us. So that's what my training programs are for, is to help people in very simple and practical ways to develop more self-trust, more self-confidence, and to understand how to be in the driving seat of our own life. Personal responsibility.
Thank you, John. I look forward to seeing you next week. You're looking quite good, by the way, so keep up doing whatever it is that you've been doing.
Thank you very well. You look amazing, so this is fantastic too. And well done with all the shows you're doing and the great work you're doing.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. We've got another show coming up, so we will be saying goodbye for now, and hopefully you will join us next week. Our next show is The Power of Etiquette and Manners, and my co-host is from the UK. His name is Philip Sykes. He's from the British School of Etiquette. So I hope you will join us for that coming up right after this. John, have a great rest of your day and weekend. Bye, everyone.
Bye.